Games are fun. From Pictionary to Monopoly, Jenga to Clue, from Uno to the game of life, games are fun. What we need to remember is, as fun as games are, real life isn't a game. Life is more than a roll of the dice. The decisions we make in life don't go away after an hour of play and can have long-term effects on us and those around us. So how do we do it? How do we win at the real games of life?
Well, life certainly looks different these days, doesn't it? Many of us are trying to navigate things like working from home. For you, you might be set up in your basement or maybe at your kitchen table. For me, I've got a little corner of our bedroom right next to our bathroom that is my office now. Many of us are trying to navigate what it looks like to have our kids home and trying to give them some sort of an education and get them involved in things and learning things and also trying not to have them go stir crazy in the house. Many of us are trying to navigate things like going to the grocery store and picking up prescriptions, what that looks like these days. Many of us are just trying to navigate what it means to have connection, human connection, even though we're just, watching through a screen or making a phone call. We're trying to have these things that seem so normal and easy just a few weeks ago, now are different, and we're trying to navigate these things. Well, for the next few weeks, we want to enter into a series called The Games of Life. And we're going to use games to help illustrate some of the things we're going to be talking about. So right now, I want you to jump right into the live chat and let us know some of the games that you've been playing as a family. Let us know some of your favorite games. For us right now, my daughter is obsessed with Go Fish. She really enjoys that. Another one that we've been playing a lot as a family is Battleship. That's been a lot of fun. But let us know what some of your favorite games are. Well, today I want to talk a little bit about Jenga. Because Jenga, I think, kind of represents how a lot of us are feeling right now. Jenga was always kind of one of my favorite, I don't know if it's a board game. Growing up, I used to always enjoy it because to me, Jenga was almost as entertaining to watch as it was to play. And when I was a youth pastor, you could have 2 or 3 or 4 teens playing Jenga, but there could be a group of 12 kind of watching around to see what was going to happen. It was always kind of fun to watch. You play Monopoly or Scrabble, and they can be fun to play, but not so much to watch. Well, maybe not Scrabble because you're just spelling things and that's not too exciting. But for other games, sometimes they're just not that exciting to watch. But Jenga was always kind of one of those games that was a lot of fun to watch and play. But I think Jenga kind of accurately represents how a lot of us are feeling right now. Because the whole purpose of Jenga is just to keep this together. The whole purpose of Jenga is just to keep things from falling over and toppling over. But for many of us, we've got stresses in our lives now, don't we? We have the stress of trying to work from home. We have the stress of trying to give our kids an education. We have the fear and stress of caring for family members or worrying about family members. Maybe you've got someone in a long-term care facility that you are just really worried for them right now. Maybe you're having some arguments and disagreements with your spouse that you didn't have before. Maybe, maybe it's not so much working from home, but maybe you've lost your job or your hours are cut down. And maybe for many of us, our lives start to feel just kind of like a Jenga board that's starting to be pulled apart. We are just doing our best to hold it together. We're just trying to keep things from falling apart. Many of you have used the YouVersion Bible app, and it's a great Bible app. But the creators of YouVersion said searches for fear and anxiety have tripled in the last few weeks. It has just tripled. You can do a word search and it will come up with Bible verses and devotions and Bible studies you can do on a particular topic. Well, the searches for fear and anxiety have just gone through the roof in the last few weeks because people are just feeling it. And for a lot of us, we are just stressed out and we are trying to hold it all together and we just cannot wait for life to go back to normal. But there's some of us out there, there's some of you listening and watching this, that life, it wasn't all that easy before. Life was difficult and hard before. Life was not, sunshine and rainbows and lollipops Life was difficult. And how the world has turned in the last few weeks and month has really just aggravated it all. And you have a lot less pieces in this, and you are just trying to hold it all together. You're doing everything you can to hold it all together. For many of us, we are just trying to hold it all together. You don't have some lofty goals and lofty ambitions and desires. We are just trying our best to make sure that the whole thing doesn't fall over. That's what we are trying to do right now. That's it. That's what we're trying to do. And for many of us, this just feels like us. I want to take a few minutes today and I want to talk about one of the 10 Commandments. And if you've ever read through the 10 Commandments, there's some ones I think that you'd expect, and there's some things that kind of stand out and don't really seem like they fit. I want you to take a second and think, if you're a parent, if you're going to write down 10 rules for your kids and you were going to put those rules in their room, or maybe it's going to be in the kitchen or in the family room, what would your rules be? What would kind of be your top 10 that you say, these are the things I want you to see? Well, if you don't know anything about God or don't know anything about the Bible, think about what your rules would be. What if you were God, what would be the 10 rules that you were going to, set out for the Jewish people? And there's kind of ones you'd expect. There's things like don't murder. You probably would have guessed that one. Don't steal from each other. Remember that I'm, the one true God. Maybe don't be jealous and envious of others and what they have. There's things you'd probably expect, but there's ones that, maybe not. And one of them, the one I want to talk about today, and if I can be so bold, just seems completely out of place. It really does. And this is what it is. It says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord. What? But it goes on. It goes on. There's even more. It says, on it you shall not do any work. Neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servants. Okay. Keeps going. Nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. What? What? Doesn't that just seem like a little odd? Doesn't that just seem like it just doesn't quite fit? Take a day off? Murder, steal, take a day off. That just doesn't seem to kind of fit. But it's in there. One of God's top 10. Don't take a day off. Don't work. Just relax. And I can almost feel some of you kind of yelling at your screen right now. I can almost feel some of you looking at your computer or your TV and going, don't you dare. Don't. Don't you dare try and talk to me right now about Sabbath. Don't you dare try to talk to me about taking a day off. Just don't. You have no idea. You have no idea my situation. You have no idea what I'm going through. You don't have any idea what life looks like for me. Just don't. And you're right. I get that. I don't know what you're going through. And I don't know what stress and anxiety and how you're just trying to hold things together. I don't know what this looks like for you right now. And if I'm honest with you, I really wrestled with talking about this subject. I really did. I wrestled with the idea of whether I should talk about this at all. I really did, because I didn't want to come across tone deaf. I really didn't. And after talking to some people about it and after wrestling through it myself, here's what I thought about. It seemed tone deaf to those hearing it for the first time. It may seem tone deaf to us, but it really seemed tone deaf to those hearing it for the first time. Think about the first audience who heard this. Moses comes down and tells these people who just came out of slavery. Talk about a 24/7 culture. There was no days off. There was no, rest. There was no, time in the hammock and relaxing with a nice cold drink in the hot summer day. You were a slave. You were worked to the bone. You were worked, many cases, till you died. You were worked. You were a piece of property, not a person. They came out of that context. They're going to what they believe is this promised plan, and they hope for this promised land, but they don't know what that's going to look like. They're not even in the midst of settling down and rebuilding yet. They are in this in-between, I don't know what's going to happen. We are living day by day situation. I mean, there are fishermen and farmers, and then there's only so much food they can take with them out of Egypt, and they are just trying to survive. And for them, taking a day could mean their death. I mean, they have no idea what it means to take a day off. They need to work to survive. They need to keep going to survive. And in the midst of that moment, Moses comes down with God's top 10 list, and he goes, yeah, don't do this, yeah, things you expect, and take a day off. What? Are you kidding me? I mean, that just seemed crazy. And it might seem crazy to you. It just means it seemed completely far-fetched. It just might seem absolutely unattainable. It might seem tone deaf. But here's the thing. Here's what God wanted them to do. Taking a day off was an opportunity to trust God for their provision. Not trust themselves, not trust their work, not trust their efforts, but God. Do you struggle with that? I know I do. I like to work. I like to do things. I like to be the kind of the author of my own future. But God wanted his people. He wanted the Jewish people to trust in him, not in themselves, not in their employees or their employers, but in him. Wanted him to trust. Wanted them to trust him. As important as their jobs were, as important as your job is, as important and as stressful as life can seem right now, it was more important to trust in the one who was the ultimate provider. It was more important for them to stop, breathe, and remember that God was the one who ultimately provides. The job that they have, the God who the freedom they have of coming out of Egypt and being in this wilderness right now was God. And he was the one who got them out. He was the one that will get them through. And I think many of us need to be reminded of that today. That as difficult as life is, and as much as it seems like, no, we just can't slow down right now. Maybe it's an incredibly important time to stop and say, God, you've got this. You've got this. But the problem is what happened is that it became about the rule rather than the reason. So they had this top 10 list, and God gave them this top 10 list, and they said, okay, we're gonna follow these rules. And of course they didn't always do it, and they messed up all the time, but they tried. And when it came to this rule, they said, okay, well, we're gonna try and follow this. And they came up with all these rules around the rule, and they came up with regulations and things they couldn't do. And they came up with a system, and they debated about what constitutes work, and they just wanted to make sure that they got it right. And I think it started off in many ways as a God-honoring thing. They want to honor God by obeying this, and they want to respect, and they want to take a day off and rest and remember who provides for them. And it started off so good, but it became about the rule rather than the reason. And here's what happened one day. One Sabbath day, Jesus was walking through some grain fields. His disciples began to breaking off the heads of grain to eat. They were hungry, and they started eating. But the Pharisees, the religious leaders, said to Jesus, "Look, why are they breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath? Why are they doing the thing that they're very not supposed to do? I mean, if you are God that people are saying you are, you should kind of know the rules." But Jesus said to them, "Haven't you ever read it in the scriptures?" And I mean, that's just kind of taking a dig at them. I mean, these are the religious people. They very much were consumed by we know what we're doing. We are kind of one step away from God, and we know the scriptures more than anybody. So for him to say, well, don't you know, or haven't you heard? I mean, he was just kind of digging at them, but he's kind of trying to make a point. They read in the scriptures what David did when he and his companions were hungry. He went into the house of God and broke the law by eating the sacrificed loaves of bread that only the priests are allowed to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. So he's kind of saying, you jump all over Moses, or you jump all over me, but you're not going to jump all over David. I mean, he's your guy, right? Why are you jumping all over me? He's basically calling them hypocritical. He goes on. Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath day was made to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. People aren't supposed to make to obey the requirements of the Sabbath. It was made for the people. Some versions say that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. What Jesus is essentially saying is, guys, you're missing the point. Yeah, you constructed all these regulations about the rule, but you missed the reason behind it. You missed the heart behind it. The fact is, the Sabbath is a gift. It's not meant to give you more restrictions and more difficulties and to have your life be more difficult. The Sabbath is a gift. You're supposed to enjoy the Sabbath. It's supposed to be a wonderful thing to have. A gift from God to you. A gift from God to you. We need a time of Sabbath more than ever. At least in recent years. We need a time of Sabbath more than ever. Our life is turned upside down more than ever. What does that look like? Well, it looks differently for everybody. For some of us, yes, we just need to take a day where we breathe. We need to take a day where we stop and try and breathe. We take a day where we say, you know what? I'm going to trust God. I know God's ultimately in control. I know that God is our ultimate provider, and God, I'm going to trust in you. Some of us, we need to do that. Some of us, we need to turn off our phones. I don't know about you, but I have a news notification on my phone. Many of you do as well. And multiple times a day, I'm getting updates about the coronavirus. I'm getting updates on the number of new cases in each province in different countries. And I'm getting updates on the number of death and what different politicians are saying about it, and what different celebrities are saying about it. And then I go on social media and I hear all that more about coronavirus. And I listen to the radio or I watch the news. And it just seems it's all encompassing and as beneficial in a very select amount of times as 24 news cycle can be. Sometimes and most times it's just overwhelming and unhealthy. Some of us, we just need to turn off the phones. We need to turn off the TV. And I don't mean stick our head in the sand and ignore it and pretend everything's going to go away. But we need to breathe. We need to take a moment and say, I know it's out there. I know we need to take precautions, but God, you're in control and you've got this. I'm going to trust in you. Some of us, we need to play some more games. We need to stop and take a few moments out of our workday or out of our day and spend some time with our kids or play a game with someone online and do it that way. But we just need to spend some time and have some fun. Some of us, we need to go out for a walk and enjoy nature. We need to get back to God's creation. We need to go out and go through a walk through the woods, go take a walk down by a river stream, and we just need to breathe. We need to stop. We need to breathe. And we need to remember who is ultimately in control. We need to take a break. We need to breathe. And we need to remember that God is in control. It doesn't need to be today. It can be any day. I would even suggest it doesn't even necessarily need to be a whole day, although I think that is beneficial. But the point is that we need to stop. We need to take a breath. And we need to remember who's in control. The Sabbath was a gift given by God. A Sabbath was a gift to you and to me. To remember that God's got this. It is not about our labor. It is not about how much we can do. But it's about trusting in the one who ultimately provides. Will you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this time to stop and take a break and just rest. I know that a message like this falls all sorts of places. I know that some people hear this and think, oh my goodness, I need that right now, and I can do it. I know there's people who hear it and think, well, that is just absolute nonsense. There is no way I can do that right now. And there's some of us who have nothing but time, but we need that ability to trust in you right now for your provision. Lord, wherever this lands, I just pray that you'd help us to figure out what it looks like in our life. Figure out what it looks like to take a breath. Figure out what it looks like to ultimately trust in you to take care of us. Not just be there in the good times, but walk through life with us in the difficult times. Lord, we know intellectually that it all comes from you. We know that in a moment you can give us a job, you can take it away. You can give us health, you can take it away. It just is all up to you anyway. Help us to remember that you have it in your hands. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, God bless. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope that you jump in the live chat. Let us know how you are going to spend your Sabbath.